And a good Sunday morning, and welcome back to First News Forum. I'm Daniel Armbruster, and we're sitting in with Senator Jay Paul Gumm this morning. And Senator, welcome back.
Glad to be here.
This morning, we've talked about back-to-school tax. Now, I wanted to talk to you about energy. I know that you're on the Energy Committee, you're former chairman and now ranking member. What is the energy outlook for Oklahoma?
Well, the energy industry went through a very tough time along with the remainder of the economy. The demand for energy went down, which meant the prices went down, which really hit the Oklahoma economy hard, because even after all the diversification we've done with Oklahoma's economy over the last 20-25 years since the oil bust in the 80s, we still are very much a ship of state that floats on a sea of oil and gas. And the gross production tax revenue that we get from really natural gas production these last few years is what allowed us to do a lot of things with state government and let us have those very good revenue figures we did for 2005, 2006, 2007, before things started going down. The outlook is good in this regard. There are right now in the state of Oklahoma more known natural gas reserves than at any time in Oklahoma's history. And the reason for that is the discovery techniques are far greater than they ever have been in the past. The technology has improved to that point. That's the good news. The bad news is most of that gas is trapped in shale formations. That is a very expensive formation into which we drill to get the gas out, and very expensive to extract it. So you have to have a little higher price of natural gas than what we've been really enjoying of late. It's a depressed price now. If the price goes up a little bit and it becomes cost effective to once again go and get that gas out of the shale formations, and the Woodford Shale is over a large part of my legislative district, beginning in Marshall County, going up a little bit in Johnston County, Cole County, Atoka County, then up into Pittsburgh County. When it becomes cost effective to go and get that gas, you see a huge increase in economic activity across southern Oklahoma. You have drilling rigs coming in, you have workers coming in, they fill up hotels, they fill up restaurants, they buy things in our stores, and beyond that, you will have landowners who get to enjoy money from people going across the surface to get to the drilling sites, and then royalty owners do very, very well when it comes time to extract that gas. So the good news is that gas is still there. It hasn't gone anywhere. We just haven't been able to go and extract it because it's just not cost effective to do so. When the price goes up a little bit and gets a little more where it ought to be, certainly doesn't need to be where it was a few years ago when it was cost prohibitive for most families, but if it gets a little bit higher and it becomes cost effective to go and get that gas, it's going to be great news for the Oklahoma economy, not just from the gross production tax revenues, but you're going to see an increase in income taxes, an increase in sales taxes, an increase in business activity. It's going to be good all across the entire spectrum of the local economies in southern Oklahoma. And
how dependent is, well, I don't want to say dependent, but how tied into the budget is that natural gas?
Well, it's an extraordinarily huge part of it. I don't exactly know the percentage right offhand, but it's close to about a third, I believe. And so when you see those natural gas gross production tax revenues begin to dip, that's when you know you've got problems. And then the larger economy issues, when you see automobile excise taxes begin to dip. Those are big ticket purchase items, and when times begin tough, that's one of those things that start to drop off. I always call it the canary in the coal mine as far as the economy goes. If you see automotive excise taxes drop, you've got economic problems out there. And that was the first thing we saw drop as we went into the recession. I mean, most of the country went into the recession a little ahead of us. We've not been hit nearly as hard as other states. This year we had about a $900 billion budget shortfall going into the session, and with stimulus money and a few judicious cuts, we got out with a balanced budget. Compare that to California that had a $42 billion shortfall. Texas had a huge budget shortfall. We were in much better shape, primarily because of the strength of the oil and gas industry, primarily because of a very conservative budgeting process that's in our Constitution.
And I remember back late last year, we did a few stories, a couple of companies, there were furloughs, layoffs, but it seems like now we're doing stories, jobs are starting to slowly creep back into the system. Are you seeing that? Or
it certainly feels that way out there. We, of course, in our area have not seen the kind of job losses that much of the rest of the country has. Matter of fact, my Senate district is one of the very few rural Senate districts in Oklahoma that all 5 of the counties that I represent have had population increases since the 2000 census. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens because you have good, solid policy, good, solid rural economic development policy, and you've got communities that work together to grow the regional economy. And, of course, going after that Woodford shale gas didn't hurt things either when you had an influx of workers coming in to go after that gas, and then all the ancillary businesses that go up around it, and then all the economic activity that generates.
And you were talking about the bust in the 80s. What difference, how have they diversified the economy? In what ways have they done that?
Well, you realized very quickly in the 1980s that you couldn't put all your eggs in the energy basket. Now, good Lord blessed Oklahoma very, very greatly, having that energy under our feet that we can pull out. But you saw that the tax policy diversified more. You had a wider tax base to go after. It wasn't solely dependent on energy and agriculture, which were 2 things in the early 80s. It just, the bottom fell out. And we went from riding high to very, very difficult times in Oklahoma in the 1980s because of the price of, at that time, oil. Now it's natural gas, and so I think that was a good lesson we learned. We have a more diversified business base, manufacturing base, distribution base, and those things, bringing those jobs into a state, and the more baskets you can put your eggs in. If you have weakness in one segment of the economy, then another segment can hold your own instead of watching it all fall off a cliff like it did in the 80s. And that's pretty much what we were able to do over the last 25 years. A lot of people, Representative Don McCorkle and Senator Ted Fisher, who carried the Oklahoma Quality Jobs Act, really set the stage for where we are today, and our aggressive economic development incentives. And then you've seen more and more localities get very aggressive with economic development as well. And so you have a nice partnership between state government and local governments to go out and attract new business and industry. And we've been extraordinarily successful statewide and really successful in southern Oklahoma with the successes we've seen. Ada, McAllister, Ardmore, Durant. It's really done a lot to help Oklahoma's economy when you see regional retail and business centers like those communities. It helps not just those communities, but the small communities around them as well.
And I've heard you say that the future of natural gas, let's take a break and we're going to talk about that, what the future of natural gas and what that means to Oklahoma, all right? We'll be right back. Stay with us.